everybody, welcome to another edition of Sports Select Sports Talk. I'm your host, Mitchell Clinton. You know, we're continuing our Canada West year in review, and we talked to Sheldon Appel at the University of Winnipeg last week. Here we are with Chris Zook, the Sports Information Officer at the University of Manitoba, to continue things. Obviously, your season went a little bit longer with the National Track and Field Championships.
It sure, certainly did. Did you tell Sheldon that he still owes me on the bet?
You know, we're going to get to that in the later part of the show, because last week he mentioned that, you know, he's just waiting for the shirt, shirt.
Oh, okay. So, well, you know what?
If the shirt gets there, maybe we can throw it in, you know.
Here's the thing. You know what maybe what we'll do is when you're back from your trip and I'm back a bit, we'll get it on air, we'll present it to Sheldon, we'll do it upright.
There, I like the sounds of that. So, Sheldon, we're coming.
Another Shaw TV exclusive.
There you go, exactly. Chris, quite a year for Bison Sports, obviously. Sure. We're going to try and touch on as many teams as we possibly can in the span of a program. We'll start with women's soccer. Chris Lewis and his team going 2-9-3. Could be an interesting offseason. Obviously, on the GoBisons.ca site, there's a posting for a head coach position. Yeah,
you know, Chris Lewis, he did great work in the last 2 years being the interim soccer coach. His schedule just doesn't permit him to be with us any further with the program. So they've put out a casting for that position, and we'll go through the interview process. And the next time we probably talk to you, we'll have a new Bison women's soccer head coach to announce.
Excellent. Looking forward to finding out who that is. Today at the press conference, we had another high school recruit for the football team. Lots of recruiting going on. You got Ryan Marsh coming in, a number of recruits named shortly after that. And then you talk about running backs, Keenan LaFrance, Nick Dembski, and Anthony Coombs. Three guys that, you know, obviously offensively the Bison's going to look forward to having. They went 4-4 this year, missed the playoffs until, you know, UBC kind of had their ineligible player after the season. Right. So obviously an interesting season for them. Yeah, you know, a young team again, kind of in that rebuilding, retooling year. But the three guys you mentioned, on the offensive side, especially with a new quarterback coming in, I know Stan Pierre, the defensive coordinator, is a little worried about recruiting for defense. We might have some great games in the new stadium, 50 to 45 games maybe this year, but definitely it's a team on the rise. A lot of offensive weapons at task. There was 7 rifles we recruited off their starting roster for offense. So good for us, bad for the rifles, but it'll be great at the new stadium, and looking forward to big things. And I know Brian Dobie is just, he's had an incredible recruiting year. We'll probably still have a couple more to announce before we get to the start of the season, but Bison football looking very good with new players coming in for the new stadium. Getting a lot of questions about that new stadium. Obviously, one exhibition game for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers is going to be played at Canada Stadium. They're looking at July 26th being their first game. A lot of questions, are the Bisons affected by this at all, or is because of their later season starting, is that something that you guys aren't too concerned about?
Well, it's something we announced that there's 180 days and counting left to our season opener, which is scheduled for Saturday, September 8th. At Investors Group Field. It'll be against the Saskatchewan Huskies. It'll be a late start on the Saturday on the Banjo Bowl weekend. So it's 180 days from now. So if we're not playing there, there's bigger problems than probably the Bisons. But we have the later start date, so we'll see how that stadium goes as we speak right now. They're working feverishly on that. So it's every indication that we'll start our season at the new stadium at Investors Group Field starting Saturday, September 8th.
All right, and moving right along now to women's hockey. Ranked #1 going into the season, John Rempel and his team, 12-8-4, but ended up missing the playoffs. Did the weight of expectation get to them, you think?
You know what, I have to say honestly, I was shocked and surprised that they were ranked #1. It was a team that lost 5 fifth-year players. They'd had a great run through those 5 years, but a very young team, so it was maybe asking a lot to them to be at those lofty standards. They battled all the way to the last weekend of the season. They lost to the eventual CIS champion Calgary on the last weekend, so I think they did a pretty good job considering the young team, and it's John's job now to kind of rebuild that team quickly and get them back to prominence again in women's hockey.
Leaving that in the hands of John Rempel, I'm sure it's very safe knowing John. Men's basketball team, we talked about the women's hockey team getting to #1, going into the season ranked by the CIS. Men's basketball team gets to #1 in Canada West, sitting at 8-4, but a tough end of the season. They finish at 8-12.
Yeah, you know what? They really took advantage of the schedule they had in front of them. They lost a couple of games I think they'd want back where they could have squeezed into the playoffs. I know Kirby Shep, he was, you know, there's no excuse, but they were a little bit decimated with injuries at the end, so which made it, you know, they had tough opponents on the schedule with a shortened lineup. So that's sort of why we fell short to the playoffs. But I know he's out there, you know, hustling away, getting on on the recruiting end there to get some big trees for next season. But definitely an up-and-coming program with Kirby Shep, only in his third season with the Bisons.
And talking to him throughout the season, he was mentioning talking to some other players from Turkey. So we'll see kind of how that goes. Yogi's is in.
He spread the wealth there. We had someone from Turkey, someone from Atlanta. We've got players from Alberta as well. So not just locally, but he's really spread the tentacles to try and recruit outside of not only North America, but Europe.
And sticking with basketball, head coach Pam Dennis of the women's basketball team, a tough season, 3-17, but they're young as well.
Yeah, very young. They only lose a couple on the seniors. It's one of those that they had a lot of close games, went the wrong side, and it's definitely something where Pam has to work with that young team and build up that program and expect bigger and better things for them next season.
Well, now let's start. We talked about the teams that missed the playoffs. Let's talk playoffs. Playoffs. That's one of those memorable quotes from the sporting world. Women's volleyball team, Ken Bentley, almost synonymous with the playoffs at this point. Their record was 11-9. Another young team beaten in the playoffs by the Westmen in 2 straight. What's kind of the forecast for the team going into next season, especially with them losing 2 big fifth years in Trisha Maba and Christy Hunter?
They do lose those 2, but counterbalancing that is Taylor Pischke's coming in. She'll have a year under her belt from America. She gets a start at the end of November. She was the top #1 high school recruit out of Manitoba a couple years ago. Brian Dobie's daughter will be backing up Nikki Hall at the libero position. They've got a couple more recruits, and the 6 and 7 recruits who are all rookies this year become sophomores next year. Christina Souza, Crystal Mulder, to name a couple, who are fantastic in the rookie season, will only get better. It's tough to lose those fifth-year players, but he's got Ken Bentley. He does it pretty well there. He's got a good cycle working with him, and expect, I think, them right back at the top 3 in Canada West playoffs next year.
We're going to take a quick step back from Chris, and now you're going to see some different people. You're going to hear my voice at the very least in this story. We talked a bit about Kirby Shep having his recruiting tentacles out in Turkey and Europe and in the States. One of those recruits got to get into some Canada West action over the Christmas break during the Westman Classic. That is Yeet O'Senior, but he goes by a very different name, as you'll find out. His legal name is Yeet O'Senior. But since he was 6 years old, the Turkish forward has been going by a different name, Yogi.
I was going to basketball coach back to Turkey. Like, we had 3 different Yeets in the same with my name. So one of my coach started to call me Yogi because all the day I was playing with the toys of the Yogi and watching the videos and video clips, the cartoons of the Yogi Bear. So they started to call me Yogi.
O'Senior's play this season, his first in Canada since coming from Turkey, is exactly what Manitoba Bisons basketball coach Kirby Shep expected he would bring to the Bisons program.
His skill level for his age is really, really high. His understanding of the game and just kind of his feel on the court is high, which is sort of exactly what you'll think about European guys. Defensively, he's still kind of learning the game, I think, a little bit as far as game standards go, but he's picking it up quite quickly.
Okay, the other team is in 3.
Learning the Canadian game in practice causes some wear and tear on O'Senior's 6'6" frame, but it doesn't compare to the work he and Shep had to put in to bring him to Canada.
You just start talking to these guys through Skype. We basically gave him part of a campus tour with me literally carrying my laptop around the campus, right? Sort of showing them different things in the campus and the team room and, you know, that kind of stuff. And yeah, it was unlike anything I've ever done before. See the women's team getting some reps here.
It may have been extra work for Shep at the time, but he applauds O'Senior for taking the risk to come overseas.
He did a tremendous amount of research on us as well, and it was really a big step for him. You know, it's a big risk for a kid like that, coming overseas, really knowing nothing, right? Leaving home, coming here, and a big risk for him, and hopefully it's paying off for him.
Just as Shep's instruction on the court helps O'Senior learn the Canadian style of play, the Skype tour helps show the differences between universities in Canada and the institutions in his home country.
I was living in Istanbul, Turkey, so it's a big city, so all the universities in the city downtown, so they don't have universities like University of Manitoba. They have a big field here, like they have lots of buildings, different buildings for different, you know, styles, like everything. So my friends are, they want to know how does this look like in the universities in the Canada. So actually they want to come and take education abroad. So I was Skyping with them and showing around. It's about -25 here now.
Yeah, I think we're on 8.
As Osanier works to catch on to this new version of the sport, he knows he can count on his teammates around him for support.
1, 2, 3.
For Shaw TV, I'm Mitchell Clinton. So that story kind of giving you a little bit of a look at what Ito Senior or Yogi kind of went through to get to Canada. So it'll be interesting to see what Kirby Shep does with talking to some of those friends that he and Yogi mentioned in that story. We're going to keep talking playoffs here with Chris.
Maybe he'll recruit Boo Boo next. I don't know.
Maybe,
maybe there's a Boo Boo out there.
You got to have the 1-2 punch. Right?
I think so.
We'll keep talking playoff teams here. Men's hockey, a great regular season for them. Head coach Mike Sarant had got his team to 25-3, a phenomenal record, winning the Canada West Division title for the first time in 41 years, but unfortunately swept by Calgary. Yeah,
you know what? Unfinished business a bit, right? Because we had our best regular season in 41 seasons. Unbelievable. We were 12-2 at home. We were rolling, and then Calgary just stopped us in the first week of the playoffs in Canada West semifinal. So it's a very disappointing end to an amazing regular season. Blair McCulley was Canada West MVP. Jeremy Shepard was the most outstanding defenseman, and you couldn't ask for anything more. But the playoffs is the playoffs, and I know it's something that Mike Sarant will have a hard time as the head coach to get over that this season. But hopefully make him hungrier and stronger for next season.
And we talked to them shortly after the playoffs. He still seems quite optimistic for next season, but like you mentioned, that the loss still hurts. We talked to the Bisons and Mike Sarant just before their series with Calgary. The Manitoba Bisons men's hockey team is used to celebrating. This year, the team is celebrating a 25-3 record and its first Canada West Division title since 1971. One of the Bisons' big contributors was Captain Mike Hellier, who finished the year with a +14 rating.
It meant a lot. I think it meant a lot for the school, for the program, for the guys in the room, all the alumni that we've been talking with the last 2 weeks. But you know, we've all put it behind us now. It's going to mean nothing if it doesn't go the way we want it to go here in the next 3-4 weeks. So, you know, our main focus is going to be Friday night. And, you know, if something special happens here, it's going to be more special than the regular season championship. So that's kind of what we're looking forward to now.
Head coach Mike Sarant is also looking ahead to his team's playoff matchup with Calgary, but says he is still receiving congratulations from other members of the community.
I'm out in the rinks all weekend because I've got 3 boys playing hockey, and everybody I'm bumping into is congratulating us on our successful year to date and wishing us all the best in the playoffs. So it's more than alumni. There's the whole province is behind us, and we're looking forward to bringing that energy on the ice Friday night.
When the Bisons do get on the ice, although the focus will be on the game, there will still be a little reminder in the corner of Sarant's eye of the community's expectations for his team. A certain banner hanging in the rafters at Max Bell.
Well, I got an email from Mike Ridley a few days ago. He said he was, well, obviously following us and saw that we ended up in first place. So he sent his congratulations and told the guys they better win or there's no Ridley scholarships next year.
Of course, he was joking about the scholarships, but the Bisons will still have to bring that sense of urgency to their series with Calgary. Mike Hellier says he doesn't anticipate his team will hide from the playoff spotlight.
You know, the key for us is playing a whole 60 minutes in a hard, rugged game. I think, you know, skill-wise, Calgary has some real high-end skill, and it's kind of the theme within the top 4 group teams this year. I think, you know, everyone's got the high skill. And I think the thing that's going to separate the winners from the losers in the playoff run here is, you know, who plays with that hard, rugged checking style for 60 minutes.
Well, I think that's an edge that we have is that we have a very skilled team. We try to combine that skill and speed with some physicality and grit, and I think that would give us an edge. Calgary are a very talented team, very offensive. They've been inconsistent this year, but they're a very explosive team, and they probably underachieved a little bit through the year, so we know going into the playoffs they're going to be a very tough team to play against.
For Shaw TV, I'm Mitchell Clinton. Welcome back to Sports Select Sports Talk, where we're continuing our playoff talk, and now we're going to get into the national stuff, which is a lot of the fun stuff that Chris likes to talk about. Men's volleyball, one of those teams that got to the national championship series anyways, not necessarily to the the championship game like Garth Pischke and his team would have liked to have been. 18-2 throughout the year, an incredible season for them.
Oh yeah, you know, it's one of those seasons that they only have one fifth-year player, which is great for next season, but they really had a great run. 18-2, they got in the playoffs, they got the CIS championship berth, with they hadn't done for quite a while, actually, considering Garth Pischke's record. They came up one game short, where they fell against one of the hottest players in the tournament, so they fell short, but they still got a medal, CIS bronze medal, nothing to slough about, and again keeps these guys hungry for next year, with all these fourth-year guys become fifth years in their final years, to trying to do what they wanted to do this year, is to win a championship.
Ryan Munt, that fifth year that's going to be leaving, like you were alluding to a few weeks ago, gets his over his 1,000th dig. That's a number of times to be on the floor with the volleyball going off.
I'm telling you right now, anything 1,000 times is amazing. To do 1,000 digs, that means someone's slamming a volleyball at you and you have to try and dig it out. It's unbelievable. He was a great captain and a great player, and it's a record he should cherish there, because it's the first one. He'll be the only one, as in he'll be the first to do that, to get to 1,000 digs. So congratulations to Ryan Munt, and a fantastic year for Garth Pischke and the Bison men's volleyball program.
I don't think I've even eaten 1,000 French fries in my life, so you can imagine how many
I find that hard to believe.
Another team that gained national exposure was the track and field team. Obviously, that was hosted at the University of Manitoba this year. That team coached by Claude Berube, 2 bronze medals, the women's 4x200, the men's 4x4. What kind of weekend was that for you guys?
It was ridiculous. I'm just getting over it, as we just finished up that. You know, always hosting a national championship is a big undertaking, but with track and field, there's 27 schools, over 430 athletes. We had 13 finals alone on Saturday, 16 on Friday, 5 on Thursday. So it's a big 3-day event. We had rave review, which was great, and especially Bison track and field, who were coming in a little bit behind in the outside of the top 10, got some of their great performances at that national championship, and 2 bronze medals is pretty good for a young team.
And the women's team, as per the GoBisons.ca website, improving a grand total of 8 places to finish 12th. The men's team finishing in 14th. So now, Chris, the fun part of the show, your top 5 Bison stories. You said it's going to be something to be reckoned with.
Oh, I don't know about that, but now you built it up too much. But you know, top 5, what I had was number 5, is I had the 50-year women players. Christy Hunter, also Muba Iliaboya and Addie Miles, all players who finish up their 5th and final year with Manitoba. Amazing careers for that, and to have it on the women's side is pretty special, because Addie Miles leaves with the most points in Manitoba history, top 10 in Canada West. Muba Iliaboya was a team captain for the last 2 years and a great foundation for women's basketball. And Christy Hunter played 4 years for us. She was a CIS, she was a Canada West second team All-Star, and a great leader, like you said, one of the 2 who are also out in China, where I was at the Summer University at earlier this year. So that's number 5.
That's number 5, and you know, you can see, you talk about Muba Iliaboya. You know, it's tough for the women's basketball team to see her go. Maybe the announcers are a little bit happy about her.
Well, maybe. I tell you, I love that name. It's like Donna Ramasione, you know? Like, yes. We've had a couple through the Bison program there, but Muba Iliaboya has been a fantastic leader there. And also Lauren Mortier, I didn't want to forget, she was also 50 of Bison women's basketball. Number 4, I can't believe this is number 4, but I have the men's, or the Bison football team, closing up the old stadium, and Anthony Coombs' amazing rookie season. Not only was he amazing, he had the most all-purpose yards in CIS and Canada West. He was a CIS first-team All-Canadian. He also led the world team over the Team USA in the International Bowl. He made Sports Illustrated Faces in the Crowd section, the first time a Bison had been there in 56 years. All that in his first year. And we closed down the old barn. That
sets the tone. I mean, we did the broadcast of that last game. You know, it was crazy. You think about all the memories. We talked to Matt Sheridan about his memories, Brian Dovey about his. It's just crazy the amount of memories that people have in that stadium, but obviously very optimistic to be moving it to Investors Group Field.
Well, the other thing, which is great, you know, Shaw's been there for a long time now. We've had the games on Shaw TV, which we really appreciate. We closed out the old stadium. Want to have it on the new stadium on Saturday, September 8th in Investors Group Field, and start a new era with Bison football, which is going to be outstanding, and we can't wait for that. Number 3, I can't believe this is still 3. Bison men's hockey, and I would love to have had them higher if we were still talking, they were still playing, that they would have been higher. But their season ended a couple weeks too short. They had the best regular season, like I said, in 41 years. Blair McCulley is the MVP, Jeremy Shepard as a most outstanding defenseman. Dane Crowley was also a second-team All-Star. Only the second time they've had conference honors like that in the program's history. Mike Sarant did an amazing job, great home record. Just fell a little short in the playoffs.
For sure, and you know, talking to them throughout the playoffs and the regular season, they were always just kind of focused on that one goal. You know, we're focusing on the next game, but we're also, you know, yeah, obviously our main goal this season is to win Canada West. Great to see them come up and do that.
And I'll tell you, hopefully bigger and better things next year. Blair McCulley should expect to be back, and he'll be the one leading us next year. One of the best players Manitoba Bisons have had in a while. He's already getting sniffs at the pro level. That's Excellent. How good. Number 2, hosting CIS Track and Field Championship. And why I put it at number 2? Because this man ran the media relay.
And got 4th in the 4x100. But
we won't want to say that there's 4 teams involved, but you were 4th.
Exactly, but you know there was some suspicion,
some controversy. I think there was. I think you
I'm
might.
not going to get into that.
We don't want to say another station, but Global might have dropped the baton, but we're not too sure about that. But unofficially 3rd, officially 4th. But it was a great time, and it was an amazing packed-out Maxwell Fieldhouse. I know you were there, and you could just feel some of that vibe there, and it was an amazing. It's always great hosting a national championship, and we did that with track and field this season.
And you talked about the number of schools that were there. You know, they were cheering for media members that they didn't even know, and when they're cheering for me, you know there's a problem. So.
Yeah, well, you know they were into the spirit. It's a great track and field community we have in Manitoba. So that's number 2. And number 1 is Bison men's volleyball. Not only did we get a bronze medal at the CIS championship, we were 18-2. Dane Pischke was first-team All-Canadian, which was the first time in a while for that. Chris Voth was an All-Star as well. Dane Pischke was also one of the tournament all-stars. Garth Pischke won 1,200 victory this year. We were talking about 1,000 digs, 1,200 victories is unbelievable. So a great year for Bison men's volleyball. Again, a little short on the desired goal of a championship, but 3rd place is nothing to laugh about, and it's a great building block hopefully for next year.
For sure, and you talk about how a lot of the teams that we touched on, including those 2 teams, still growing into next season, so it'll be interesting to see how those Manitoba Bisons fare next season. Chris, I want to thank you a lot for coming on the show here on location at Smitty's Bison Sports Press Conference. So appreciate you taking the time.
And I will just say this, the next time we talk, hopefully we're doing a wing off at Smitty's.
Fingers crossed, and we'll see how I do in that. Thanks for joining us on Sports Select Sports Talk. We'll see you next week.